We will get started in just a few more seconds. We're going to wait until everyone gets into the webinar. So if you guys will just hold tight for a second and we will get started. Okay. We should have had enough time for everyone to get in. So welcome everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is the second webinar in our series, Empowering with Languages, that Avant-MFLA is doing with the Mississippi Foreign Language Association. We're so glad that you guys could join us today. Today, we have two special guests with us from the Mississippi Department of Education. This webinar today is going to be addressing let me get it where I can click here. There we go. Today's webinar is going to be talking about implementing the Mississippi Seal of Biliteracy. So we're so glad you're here. My name is Dawn Samples. I'm the Director for Professional Learning at Avant, and I'm over the area called More Learning. It's more opportunities reaching everyone. So we're so glad you could be here. We want to be sure and introduce our guests in just a minute. I just want to make sure I answer a few questions that I know you guys are going to have. One is, if you are attending today's webinar and you would like to get a certificate for your attendance, if you are part of the Mississippi cohort of teachers and you are getting CEUs through the University of Mississippi, you will need to go through Edgar Serrano to access those CEUs, and you do have to attend every webinar in this series. If you are joining us outside of wanting to do that and you just want a certificate for today's webinar, you will have the option to do that. There's going to be a link that will pop up for you at the end of our webinar. That link is going to take you to a real brief survey. When you complete that survey, the message that you get that pops up will give you a link to your certificate, and you can download that certificate, print it out, and fill in your information on that certificate. So that's just for you to know. This webinar is also being recorded and it will be uploaded to YouTube for you. And also you guys will be able to ask questions today in the chat. Make sure you participate in the chat and you share what you're doing in the chat, and you'll get a copy of that in a PDF format. If you are in attendance at the live webinar, you will get a copy of that in the chat. We also are going to be following a thread on Twitter with the hashtag Empowering with Languages. And so right here you can see the MFLA social media contact information. I will be posting that for you in the chat in just a few minutes, so you can make sure and follow MFLA. Make sure that you also are tagging them if you're tweeting and using our hashtag. Also want to let you know that we also have our Avant-MFLA social media information that I will also post for you when you get in the chat, and so you can also follow us and tag us as well. The More Learning website, if you go to morelearning.avantassessment.com, you can access the More Learning YouTube page from there as well. And there are all of the webinars, all the free webinars that we've been doing and that we'll continue to do over this next week with MFLA will be posted there. So just want to make sure you guys know how to access that so you can share it or watch it again if you want to. Alrighty, so let's move on. I want to make sure and introduce our guests today. Our Twitter and chat moderators today are joining us again from the University of Mississippi. We have Michael Rains, who's the Instructional Associate Professor of TESL and IEP. Michael is the VP of Programs for MFLA. So Michael, we're so glad you could join us today. Welcome.
Well, welcome everyone, and it's great that you're all here.
Thank you. We also have Edgar Serrano, who has been just a master coordinator working with me on these webinars, and I just appreciate his help so much and all the wonderful things he's doing as the Executive Director of MFLA. He's a lecturer of Spanish at the University of Mississippi also, so welcome Edgar. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you and welcome everybody. Greetings from Northeast Mississippi. We are so happy to be able to partner with Advent and be able to offer you these free webinars, and also to the University of Mississippi for helping us getting CUs for the teachers in our state. Now more than ever, we need a multilingual workforce. So it is crucial that we implement programs like this, like the Seal of Biliteracy. Thank you for being here and learning with us. So empower with languages. Keep chatting and keep tweeting. I'll be on the other side. Take care.
Thank you, Edgar. So as Edgar said, if you would please introduce yourself on chat and in Twitter. Let us know where you're teaching, what you're teaching. Even if you're not from Mississippi and you're joining us today, please make sure and introduce yourself. It helps us to know, maybe find out what other states are doing and what you're doing in your state for the Seal of Biliteracy. Okay, so our special guests today, presenters, are from the Department of Education in Mississippi. We have Sandra Elliott. She is the English Learner Intervention Support Specialist in the Office of Elementary Education and Reading. And we also have Lemuel Eubanks, who is he's in the Office of Secondary Education. And you guys will see towards the end of the slides, he has all of his titles. He wears so many hats, you guys. But one of his hats, fortunately for us, is world languages. So I'm going to welcome you guys. And Sandra, I am going to turn things over to you. And then we will be checking back in with you guys in just a few minutes so that we can look at what our tweeters and our chatters are saying and doing. Okay?
Well, welcome and thank you so much, Don, for that great introduction. I'm Lemuel Eubanks and I do wear many hats. One of my main hats is the arts. I'm over pre-K through 12th grade, dance, media arts, music, theater, visual arts, and world languages. And I'm very fortunate to have my colleague and dear friend, Sandy Elliott, and I'm gonna let her talk a little bit and introduce herself.
Hi everyone, welcome. We're so happy to be able to present this information to you today. We are so excited at Mississippi Seal of Biliteracy. I'm Sandy Elliott. I am the English Learner Intervention Support Specialist in the Office of Elementary Education and Reading, but I do serve students from pre-K to 12th grade.
All right, so thank you again for joining us, and we just wanted to talk with you today and share with you and discuss the Mississippi Seal of Biliteracy state policy and our guidelines that was passed in October of 2019. And it was also passed with the option for district.
This is advancing without me. I don't know what I'm quite doing here. It is automatically advancing.
So Don, you can be in charge of the clicker. And so
yes, I'm out. I failed.
Sandy and I will just let you know, again, you know, this is new technology that we're all working through. And so, but you know what's so great about this is that we're all in this together, but we are trying to find ways to really continue our learning. And that's what MFLA and Avant, we're all working together to really help this. And so we're just, again, excited. So one of the things that we always focus on when we start our presentation is, or any trainings, is our State Board of Education goals. And we are just trying to provide every opportunity that we can for our students, our children in the state, but also we do that through the quality of trainings and support that we provide our teachers and the administrators of those schools and districts. And so Sandy, her and I are working together. And one of the great things about the Seal of Biliteracy is that this gave an opportunity for us both to pull together what we're doing in our own areas of work and really combine our forces and to show what it takes when we come together and to provide this. And
So when we
Sandy's
look at our, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, would you share our mission with us? And that's on our next slide.
Yeah, I think it's on the previous slide, Dawn. Yes, so yeah, so we really work towards providing that leadership through our development of policy and accountability systems so that all students are prepared to compete in that global community. And this policy that for the Seal of Biliteracy, we really feel is so important for helping our students compete in that global community. And then on the next slide, if you look at our 6 State Board of Education goals, when we look at the Seal of Biliteracy, it specifically addresses State Board of Education Goal 1, which is for students to be proficient and showing growth in all areas, because the rigor for preparing for earning a Seal of Biliteracy really raises the level for our expectations for our students. We look at goal number 2, that's for every student to graduate from high school and is to be ready for college and career. This really is also going to help motivate many of our students who may be at risk for dropping out to stay in school, because they can earn this important seal, which is really going to help them to be at an advantage when it comes to the workforce and to college. And it also supports goal number 6, which is every school to be rated, a school and district to be rated a C or higher, because this is really pushing that rigor for all of our students. So on the next slide, we have a short video that we'd like to show that really just kind of introduces the idea of that Seal of Biliteracy and how it's beneficial for us.
So Sandy, the video is not showing up. We may have
down towards the bottom. Can you hover towards the bottom of this, the black screen? See if it comes up. No luck. Okay, so we're not going to watch that video.
We can include that. We could maybe include a link to that video in the document for everyone, and then they can go see it.
Okay. All right, and it's really just a great video about showing how really the need for bilingualism and biliteracy in our global economy is just so important for our students. So Lemuel, I think you're up to this next part.
And Edgar probably can already pull that link up and share it in the chat. It was one of the great resources he shared with us. So we want to tell you where you can find this information. We have 2 different locations on our MD website, and on the World Languages website page, you can see we have a section that has the Seal of Biliteracy State Board Policy and also the guidelines that we're going to be talking about. And in the next slide, Sandy has it also on her page for English learners, and you can see it's right there. And as I was talking earlier, this was a great opportunity for us to really collaborate and show that we are providing an opportunity for all students and support for our teachers to really raise that rigor, to really give them the opportunities that they need to be successful in their careers and in their lives moving forward. So again, I'm very fortunate to have my dear friend and colleague Sandy to be helping with this task. And also we're going to share lots of other people that helped us along the way. So our next slide shows a graphic of that Mississippi became the 37th state to adopt the Seal of Biliteracy. And we have the link to the National Seal of Biliteracy website, where you can go and get an updated version or an updated map. So this is constantly changing, but you can see where all of the states are working together, and we're trying to get this nationally where we're all participating. And what we're doing is we're looking towards national Seal of Biliteracy as a guidance and helping lead us so that we are united. So wherever our students are traveling and moving, that they are still getting the same quality, so that when they earn the seal, that they'll be able to, it'll transfer across states, especially when they're going to universities and colleges. So this is just an example of how we're working together and how things are changing, where languages are very important, not only just in our state, but in the United States and also nationally. Sandy, you want to share with us about all the great people that helped us get to this point?
Yeah, so it really, I have to say that Lemuel was really the driving force for it. When he came to me and asked me if I would help him with it, I could immediately see the benefits for English learners, and I was honored to be a part of it. I do want to say that we didn't just do this on our own, though. You can see here the list of panel members for the Mississippi Seal of Biliteracy, and they are from districts around the state. And I just want to state how much input that they gave, so much quality feedback, and really just what did we need to include. And they spent a lot of time, countless hours, looking through documents, researching, and really providing a lot of information for us to put it together. And I have to say too, that this is an example of really one or two teachers who were really very adamant that this had to happen. And they were our co-chairs here. They were really driving forces in making sure that we made this happen. And it's a perfect example of how one voice, one or two voices, can make a huge difference for all the students around the state. And I think this is really, this has been a really wonderful collaboration. And
we also want to say that, you know, we listen to our teachers, we listen to what their needs are. And so at the department, you know, we try our hardest to really help support them. And this is an example of how it started in the classroom, and those teachers wanting to raise that. Also, Edgar, representing the Mississippi Foreign Language Association, how he was bringing those groups of teachers together and listening to their needs. And so once again, this is a true collaboration, and this is something that we're very proud of. Sandy and I have presented in another state, trying to get the seal going. Edgar has been presenting nationally, and so we are very proud to be able to say that we truly modeled and show coming together and what true collaboration is within our state, and to help. And then here we are again today, sharing again and collaborating. All right, so as you can see, the Seal of Biliteracy has multiple purposes, and we want to make sure that we focus on these and point these out in this training. I do want to say that this is our pilot year, and so we wrote our guidelines and we try to envision everything possible, but we are in the process of even gathering information. So the things that you're chatting and questions you're asking is going to really help us when we go back and make those edits and give clarity. But one of the things is we want to recognize the value of language learning. That is very important. Giving students a clear goal that can encourage them to attain high school proficiency levels in one or more languages in addition to English. Affirm that native or heritage languages are very important. If we don't continue to pass and learn and study these languages, we're going to lose them. And so we want to honor all languages and all students who are learning these languages. By doing that, we're going to provide employers with a method of identifying individuals with language and biliteracy skills, which is so important in today's time of being able to communicate globally. And we want to make sure that we prepare our students with the critical skills necessary to function in a global society. We want to strengthen cross-cultural communication, affirm the value of diversity and honor in multiple cultures and languages in our communities. And we do need that today, as you know, of what's happening globally and things like that, that we need to be able to communicate with each other and understand and honor and appreciate all cultures and all languages. Sandy, you want to share with us a little bit more about the global and mobile society?
So we see that there is such a great need for languages. We really are that global and mobile society, and we communicate multiple languages everywhere. We continue to see that diversity in cultures and languages all over the United States, including Mississippi. Currently, Mississippi has over 60 languages that are spoken by students in our schools, and our students deserve that opportunity to acquire languages skills at the high school level to better prepare them for college and for the workforce. And the challenge for implementing this is at the local level is helping all teachers and administrators so that we can remove those barriers and support those high expectations needed for student success. Because we see here all the different areas where multiple languages are needed. So then on the next slide, we see just some key points about the policy. So the Seal of Biliteracy, it recognizes and awards students who have attained proficiency in one or more world languages and English by high school graduation. And it is indicated on their high school transcript. So an employer can see it and universities and colleges can see it. It demonstrates the student's readiness for college and career and for engagement as a global citizen. It also includes participation. It's a participation option for districts. We have a policy in place at the Mississippi Department of Education, but that participation by local school districts is determined by the local school board. And beginning in this previous school year, we required that any participating school districts had to follow the award process as we defined it in the Mississippi Seal of Biliteracy guidance document. And local educational agencies are also required to report the Seal of Biliteracy award data to the MDE, which we are in the process of also working with a network of schools who have already implemented the Seal of Biliteracy to make sure that we're really collecting the data appropriately and not overwhelming schools and districts with too much information that's extraneous or that they're already inputting somewhere else.
Okay, so what is the Seal of Biliteracy? Well, again, it's an award given by the school and the school district or county office of education in recognition of students who have studied and attained proficiency in 2 or more languages by high school graduation. It appears, as Sandy said, on their transcript of when they graduate as a senior. And so you want to work with your students and start getting them knowledgeable with the seal so that when they are at the great high school graduating, that they are sufficient and can be awarded that. It serves as a statement of accomplishment for colleges, admissions, and for future employers. This is very important that we want our students to leave high school after graduating with as much skills that they can possibly have. And so this is like a stamp of approval showing that they have studied, they have learned these languages, and that they are going to be a very key asset to an employer and also to colleges. They want students that have skills as well and to be able to communicate and be successful in whatever degree programs they choose. On the next slide, I'm going to continue talking about the ability of the function in a language at a high degree of complexity. What we want is we want the districts to be able to utilize multiple assessments to measure this degree of proficiency. And if you think about, there's all different types of languages, and so there's different assessments for those particular languages. So for instance, Spanish may have a different assessment tool than say French. And so the seal will be awarded in 2 levels, a silver and a gold. And Sandy's going to talk a little bit later about what those scores are. In our guidance, we have some score levels that we set, but those will be changing throughout the years. So you'll need to make sure that you are aware of those, and Sandy are working together on how we're going to communicate that. But we do have 2 levels. You also can award other levels, and that would be at the district level, but on their transcript, there is only 2 levels, a silver and a gold. Okay, and the next slide. So high school students who, this is for them to qualify, they're going to need to have qualifying scores in English and meet qualifying scores in a world language. So we stated that they have to have proficiency in 2 languages, and so English and their world language. And then Sandy's going to talk about some students, English may be their second language, and so we want to honor their native language as well. So also we want to provide acceptable original scores reported for the assessment of the languages, and that's what as we're in this pilot year of looking at how we're going to gather those scores and what scores levels and things like that. So that's something that is still evolving as we're working through this presentation. So the things that we're sharing with you right now is what's taking place now. All right, so in the next slide, who awards the seal? As I said, it happens at the district level, but this is it's not a mandate. It's a choice by the districts, but we want them to make sure that to adopt a local seal of biliteracy policy, they have to follow our policy, our state board policy, and our guidelines. And the policy, you can actually, districts can take that and adopt it and tweak it. So it's not like you have to come up with everything on your own. And so the guidelines, we put that in there so that will help you to keep the integrity of the program and how to implement it in your district. And as Sandy has said, we have brought together a group of districts that have already implemented it this year, and that there's a couple that are in this pilot year. And so as districts are coming on and adopting it and joining, that we can build this community and continue working together across our state so that we do have a seal, Mississippi Seal of Biliteracy that does live up to the national level as well as our state. So our next slide, we're going to take a break, and Sandy and I are going to answer any questions that we might need to give clarity to. Don, do we have any questions?
Okay, guys, I think it's time for a tweet and a chat checkup. So let's go with that. And let me just share with you something that is very important. At this time, all 50 states are working in one way or another to implement the Seal of Biliteracy. So I think it's very important that we as teachers learn to advocate for the implementation of the Mississippi Seal of Biliteracy here in our state. It's important that we share numbers with your administrators, with your parents, because they need to see the value that the Seal of Biliteracy can have for their students, for their children, because Mississippi is home for to 400 or more international companies. We export to 25 countries around the world. So it has a lot of impact, and we need that workforce that is multilingual. Something that is probably in a lot of people's mind is, do you have to have an AP class in order to have the Mississippi Seal of Biliteracy? And then that will be something that I will share with you. And then I go with Michael now, or we go with Michael.
Yes, we had several questions coming along, but one of them was Lemuel. They wanted to know what percentage of the Seal of Biliteracy recipients would be English language learners versus non-English language learners. I don't know if we've reached that level yet. And then another attendee asked the question of, he has students who have been studying the language for at least 5 years, and they've reached junior high level, and she wants to know if they can try and earn the seal prior to high school with that 5 years of language.
We'll cover that last question. Sandy will cover that when we get to the assessment pieces.
Well, I can answer it quickly now. So they can't earn it until they get to high school, but this is a perfect opportunity of following through with what Linda talked about last Friday, in that you have students who may be ready to earn that silver level by the time they're maybe freshmen in high school. However, by the time they're seniors, they may have leveled up and be able to earn that gold level. So it is something they have to earn at the high school level, but you are doing, I think that was Jennifer on there, you are doing that perfect groundwork to really, really set them up for high performance on this and to be able to level up to eventually get to that gold level Seal of Biliteracy.
And what we also,
and then what was the other?
Well, let me add one thing. What we also want students to start doing, or what we really like, is that once they take those assessments, that they could learn more than one language, not just two. They could learn 3 and 4 languages. And so, you know, they may have to, you know, they could take courses, or they might be so already proficient, is what I'm trying to say, that they could take that assessment that's geared towards which language they're working towards. And so, you know, you need to start thinking at 5th and 6th grade of how I can start introducing this program to my students so that they could see the options and that they could learn multiple languages. And actually what we're hoping is that we'll show that we need to start in pre-K with language. We need to start at the very minute they come into school of providing those opportunities and expose them to as many languages and to build that proficiency. So when they are at the high school level, that when they start running on those credits or start being able to take those classes and assessments, that they are sufficient. I noticed there was a question about, so we have the state board policy, and the policy is written in a way that the districts can take that and adopt it outright and make it their district policy. They may choose to add something to it, but they have to have those components that's in our state board policy. The guidelines, they have to follow those guidelines. Now they may add some additional things to it, and but you know, like what part of that to keep, they need to follow those guidelines to maintain. If they choose to offer this award, one thing is they have to have a state board policy. They have to have a local district policy that has the same language that our state board policy has, and they have to follow our guidelines. Now they may have something they add in there, and I'm just saying this off the top of my head, that they may start offering it at you can start earning Carnegie units at grade 7. Well, they may start building their program and saying, you know, students, you know, there might be some other things that they can add to it in addition to make it a little bit more to meet their needs. But I hope to answer that question. You have to follow our guidelines. You have to have our policy. Is that right, Sandy?
Yes, that's right. Okay, so I think we want to keep on schedule, so I'm going to move us along in looking at some of the specific features of the Mississippi guidelines. So in the guidelines, we really worked hard to provide step-by-step guidelines for district implementations. And we also have clear definitions of the terms. So here you see an example on this slide of even just the notification level that we tried to make sure that districts are fully aware of. We want to start notifying students about this in 7th or 8th grade. In the example where our participant Jennifer, I think her last name is Weir, said that she's got kids who have been taking it for 5 years, and that's fantastic. And she's already going to start getting the word out. So that's really going to help to build their world language program, not just at that lower level, but at the high school level. So that's really an important part too. And then the next slide. So again, we provide a clear list of the acceptable minimum score requirements for both the silver and the gold level. We give a clear list of which are the acceptable assessments for demonstrating proficiency in both English and in world languages. And we have multiple assessment options for demonstrating proficiency, because we want to make sure that we have, there's not just one place to go, and we have variety for our students. Some of them you'll see are offered at no cost, and some do have a cost. And districts are finding different ways to pay for that. Some are having parents pay for it. Some are having using different funds in the school to pay for that. So that's something you'll have to connect with your district about how that would be taken care of. Then on the next slide, here we're seeing actual pages from that show the silver level for the Seal of Biliteracy. So you'll see that in this we list, on the left you'll see the English assessments that are available. And one of those English assessments that are available is the Mississippi English 2 test. So that's one that all students have to take anyway. It's provided for students at no cost. So, and it gives you, so you'll see the language, you see the different assessments, and you see the minimum score requirements. Note that for students who are English learners, the only way they can use the Mississippi English Language Proficiency Test is if they take it at the high school level. So if we have English learner students who test it out at junior high or at elementary school, they're going to have to show their English language proficiency using a different assessment. Then on the right, you see the different world languages. And note that we also include, in addition to that, we really wanted to be inclusive of all languages. So we also included tribal languages, and we included American Sign Language. So, and we also have other languages that are not as, we don't have computer assessments for, so we have an alternate evidence portfolio assessment for them, and I'll show you that in just a bit. But on the next slide, we see the same thing with the gold Seal of Biliteracy. Again, on the left, you see the English and the language and the assessments. And also we provide the links right there for you in the guidelines. And then on the right are the world languages.
And these are options. Okay. So any one of those assessments you choose based on if you're your budget you have, or what, you know, if you have an AP class, well, they can take that. If you don't have an AP class, there's another option you can take. We try to give as many options for you at the district level to start. If you only have one language, then you can still English and that one language. Those students can still get a seal. what we're hoping is that you can advocate more to offer more languages. What if I don't teach another language? If you have a student that speaks that language, they can take that assessment and still earn that. They don't have to have a course in that at the school level. We hope that they do, because that's where you get more in-depth instruction and one-on-one. So I just want to make that clear, because some of the questions I'm seeing in the chat is that these are all options and you pick which assessment you want. So that's why we have all these links.
And you may have a student who, for example, has been attending Chinese culture and language classes since they were 5 years old, and your school may not offer that language at their school as a world language, but your student is still able to take one of the assessments to determine their level of proficiency. We want to acknowledge that work that they have had in learning that language. They've accomplished that level. So in these slides, we show just some examples of what we have also included in the guidelines, some student scenarios, so you can help determine what level the seal would be awarded. So if we go on to the next slide, we can see that, I'll just give one of those examples. So, so student C, the first example on the left, the student earned on their MDE English Language Proficiency Assessment, they didn't earn the highest level in all 4 domains, so they would have earned a silver at that level. But on their Spanish 1, on their Spanish test through Apple, they earned that gold level. But because both were not at the gold level, that student would be awarded a silver seal of biliteracy. So we've gone through some scenarios in here to include for you to look at, just to help you to determine what level should different students earn. And again, so we really wanted to look really carefully and be very inclusive of all languages and all students. So we included a portfolio-based alternative evidence assessment method. And this is for students who have a disability that might prevent them from taking a computer-based assessment. It's also for students who may have learned a language for which there's not a computer-based assessment. So we want to make sure that we're inclusive of those students. And we would work with the student to find an expert in the language who could assist with scoring the student on the information that they present. And again, this is going to be different. It's going to look a little different. So for example, if we have students who have taken the Latin test, they're not going to have all 4 domains because it's not a spoken language. We may have some other languages that our students have learned that are from their first country, their home country or their parents' home country that they know, but they may not include a written language. So we want to make sure that we're looking at the appropriate domains for that language. Okay, and then on the next slide.
So this information is the student information. And again, Sandy are working on, with our OTS of reporting. We have to be very careful with student information, but this is just something that the district can notify on the front end of within the district, letting the students know that, hey, here's an option. And one of the things that I like to take a moment to say about when you have students coming in that speak other languages, a lot of times, you know, they're learning the second language and which is English. We don't want them to lose their native language. And a lot of times they may be able to speak, but they may not know how to write that language or to be able to read in that language. So this is an opportunity for us to really encourage them to to study their native language and to really strengthen that as well as they're learning a second language. So that's something that we wanted to do here in Mississippi, was to be able to provide that opportunity. So work with your counselors, helping students know that this is an option, and it gives them a goal to work towards. And so this is just an example of something that you can use to communicate incoming students. So on the next slide, Sandy, you want to touch base a little bit on the application?
So this is, we also give an example of a student application that you can take it and copy it and use it. You can add any additional information on it that you'd like. But it's for you, it's a way to help you keep on track, that because you have a lot of students going through your high schools, and you want to make sure you, as you're working with counselors and with world language teachers, to help that student as they meet those many benchmarks to achieve that goal. Okay, next slide. So we also included a district there we go, a district participation form. So districts must submit this form to us once they have passed their local school board policy for implementing the Seal of Biliteracy.
And in Mississippi, when this is signed off by their state, their superintendent, they also need to attach the actual policy from the board minutes when they approve that with this, to let us know that they're participating. And then we can start communicating with the contact person and updating them on any things that we might have changed or tweaked in the guidelines. So our next slide, the reporting, again, Sandy talked about what is reported. We want to gather some information that we can report back to national on how we're growing the program, looking at the number of students, looking at what districts are participating. And so this is some basic information right now that we're wanting to report. So again, you may only have one student that you feel that can pass that assessment. That's the start, so, start with one student, find that one student that you feel confident, and start building the program. So as you're beginning as a teacher, you may, first of all, don't ever feel that you don't have the ability to bring your students to that high level. You've got to set that level for your students. And so start with that one student, and y'all work together and get that started in your district. But anyway, this is some basic information that we're going to report. All right, our next slide. Sandy, you want to share?
Yeah, so this is just beginning information. And again, we're working with, this is information that we might require from MSIS, but again, we are working with our network of districts to make sure that we really get the right information for students. But this is here, the number of students earning the silver and the gold, and the names of the English and world language assessments that are used. Those are just basic, and that's just basic information that we would report at the national level.
So thank you, guys. I am so sorry. I had a few technical problems on my end, but I am back. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We are going to check back in now with Edgar. I know that there were a number of questions also, Michael, that you had in the chat. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys and let you guys share with and Lemuel what some of those questions were.
And if y'all could just share one and let us answer, and then that way we can address and remember what the questions are.
Okay, we do. Everybody's very excited about being able to learn today about the Mississippi Seal of Biliteracy. I think I'm going to go back to the question of if they need to have an AP class in order to be able to get the seal.
And the answer is no. They do not have to have an AP class.
Okay.
Although I know that it's very helpful because they're really very rigorous in helping students. But if your school does not offer it, but the student can meet those levels, they can still earn it.
And I will say real quick that districts get points by having AP classes. And so we are working at the department on ways to train teachers that are wanting to get that AP training. And so that is a plus, that if you want that program and they know that they can get scores, that might be one way you could get it started. But if you don't have an AP class, you do not have to. But that would be a good way, because they get points for that. So if you want to advocate for it, you go to them and say, hey, I want to get certified so I can offer some AP courses. And then, oh, by the way, we could do this. So that's another way we could.
It's a good selling point.
Next question.
I also had a question. Yes, I had a question here from Rosa. She says that she teaches IB Spanish standard level. How can her students use the IB certificate?
Now you'll have to school me on that. I'm really, I guess I need to know more information about it. And maybe that's something she could email us about, so that we can really give her a thorough answer on it.
Okay.
I did see some,
Right.
a couple
And
of
then
comments.
another,
Go ahead.
someone wanted to know how this could be used in like private schools versus state schools.
I'll let you take that one since you're.
Well, they have their own guidelines. There are some private schools that follow our assessment. And so that would be something that they could work with the national office. And they're welcome to use our guidelines as a guidance to get it started in their school for their students. But they can offer that. Again, it's offered at their district level. So I guess they could follow their own school policy.
Okay, thank you. And then the third question was from Corey. She said she had emailed the State Department earlier about the ASLPI versus the SLPI. She wants to know, will both be included in the assessment list for ASL?
Yeah, so that's one of the things, Corey, and I do remember your email and I have not forgotten you. That is something that we're working on. So, and we thank you for bringing the differences up with that. We have spoken with the experts on the ASL, and at this point, we have to include what is on the guidelines, and we are in the process of going through our APA to make any necessary changes, and we appreciate your you're really bringing that to our attention. We are not experts in American Sign Language, and this was very helpful to us, so that really we could identify what's really going to be the most helpful and beneficial for students and attainable. I did see one thing in there in the chat about not everybody in their school or in their district being on board. And this is really another example of sometimes we have to advocate for our students and what's going to be beneficial for them. And we really would encourage you to, if you are a world language teacher, we would encourage you to get your English learner teachers on board too, and your general ed teachers and your counselors on board. This, in order to make this happen at the state level, we really had so many people from all different areas to help bring it together, and that's what made the difference for making this happen. And I think that is the model we also want to follow at the local level, at the district level and at the school level. Your voice really does make a difference. As we said, it was one or two teachers whose voices made a big difference in making this happen for the state. And I know sometimes they would get tired of hearing my voice at the school level when I wanted to implement something, but it makes a difference when they know how important it is for us and how important and valuable that is for our students.
That is so, so true, Sandra. I know that some of the slides you have coming up actually also address some other types of things that can come up. So I'm going to go ahead and let you get started back. We'll keep taking your questions in the chat, but so you guys keep sharing your questions. And even if we don't get to all of them today, Sandra and Lemuel will have access to your questions and we'll be able to follow up with you after the webinar as well. So let's keep going. Sandra, I'm going to keep clicking your slides now.
Okay. So this was a sad piece of graffiti. You can see it was in England that someone showed us, and I remember we were in a large webinar, and somebody, multi-state webinar, and the person who showed it, Arthur, who's really a fantastic advocate for the National Seal of Biliteracy, shared it with us. And I remember there was a gasp that went up in the room when we saw this. And so what happened is they have a wonderful artist in England who decided he didn't actually change this. I think the community took care of taking care of this, but he thought, well, what if it said something just a little bit different? And the next slide is what he thought of what it could be. And just the power of valuing all of those languages. He looked it up. Those are the languages that were spoken in that community. I love that he included Cockney in there. So just the fact that there are times when we have to make a change from some thoughts that are out there and really just help others to see that we are really trying to embrace language and really trying to embrace culture and people and truly, truly make our children members of the global community. Lemuel, did you want to add anything with that?
It's a global opportunity, but in our state, we are going to have to advocate for our students. We're going to have to educate them that speaking more than one language is very beneficial to them. Doing surveys to find out what cultures and what places they might want to go visit. And that is why they may want to learn that language so they can truly understand that culture. That open their eyes, show them the beauty of the world, the beauty of the different cultures, and what every culture has to offer. And so being able to communicate and immerse yourself in not only your own language, but others is really going to make the world a better place. And it's up to them. They're the next leaders and the next generation that's going to make this world a better place. And especially in today's time, we need to provide our next leaders the opportunity to be able to make the world a better place. And so that's right there is where you need to advocate for letting your students know, finding out what they're interested in, and working with parents, administrators, community leaders, being involved in your state and national organizations, and really promoting. And know that there's a team of us working together. And what's so great about this is that we're learning as we go along, and our guidelines, I think we did very good starting out. There's a few things that we're seeing as we pilot, hey, we didn't think about that, and that we're tweaking this as we go along. But we can make a difference. Here's some great resources that Sandy and I have put together for you to use as guidance, but also to get the seal in your school. Maybe you're the only school in the district that wants to start it, the only class, or collaborate. Again, going and getting everyone together is really going to help. So these resources will really help you. our next slide is basically our contact. Notice Sandy's name's first. You can email her any questions. Or we recommend you CC both of us because it really helps us to be able to look at it and think about. So if you have any questions, make sure you copy both of us so that we can capture that. Because sometimes we're able to talk and one of us answer the question. But anyway, be patient and give us some time. Sometimes you may ask a question and we have to put it on our wish list, you know, but we will try to get back to you, let you know where we are on that. But we really encourage you to send some questions and help us, to help you as well. Again, we both thank you so much for all of you for what y'all are doing. And know that, that we're in this work because we truly want to provide our students those opportunities that we didn't have to make this world a better place. And again, thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much, Lemuel and Sandra. I just appreciate so much your time today. And we've had so many participants who've had questions. I know our time is up, but please, before you leave the chat room or on Twitter, go ahead and make sure you put your questions into the chat because we will have access to those and they will be able to reach back out to you and respond to your questions if you have questions about implementing the seal in your program, in your district, or what you need to know about implementing the seal. Don't forget that you are also going to get a post-webinar survey. So when you go to exit the webinar today, a little box will pop up in that window. Make sure you click on that box. There's a little link there that you'll click on to go do the survey, and that way you can access your certificate from us if you need it that way. Otherwise, you will, you know, if you're in Mississippi, you may be getting your certificate through Edgar. I do want to just say again, thank you so much to MFLA and to the Mississippi Department of Education for joining us today and for sharing this information. If there's any way that we can help advocate with you and for you so that your kids can get the Seal of Biliteracy, I sure hope that, that you'll let us know so we can help you with that. And that is all of our time for today. We will be seeing you online again soon. Don't forget that we have several more days of webinars coming up, so be sure to join us. Check us out on social media, and you can go in and register. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope everyone has a great rest of your Monday.